dive right in. All right, cool. Fantastic. So we are kicking off our second half of the day. We'll start off with panel 3. This was supposed to be part of the first group so that it builds on the momentum. But again, it's never too late, and we saved the best for last. So this panel, we really want to unpack, esports for social education. In the morning, we had from the federations and the governance structures. Then we had from the ladies. And then now, the core task for this fantastic panel is to help us really demystify this very complex, or what has appeared to be complex, field, and how it then intermarries with the other sectors. So in the context of education, in the context of tourism, we had that earlier. In the question that keeps emerging is where are the jobs, so that will come up quite strongly. And also culture diplomacy. At the end of the day, there was a very strong point on an opportunity for Africa to create content, not just participate as a player or as a consumer, but also to participate in IP ownership. Now, with that, I would like to do a brief intro. I'll let them do justice to themselves. Brian the Beast Dianga, esports legend. I think for most of us in the room probably know Brian, but he's also representing the African esports and as a video games ambassador, not just for the region, but also continentally. Then we have Marvin, also known as Ninja. Okay, Abraham seated here from the Uganda Esports and Gaming Federation. He's also the federation moderator. We have Yared Ndale. He's the president of the Ethiopia Games Association. And lastly, the face of Aruden founder, Ivan Chibuka. So I know we're pressed for time, and I'll let them give a hint of their profiles. But as I hand over the mic to them, I just want to set the stage for our conversation, and then the stage for our conversation, and then we can speak through some of the questions that I have lined up for them. Just give me 1 second as I find my original thoughts. Bear with me. Okay. So just particularly for this session, I again want us to speak to an audience that may not be familiar with the field. I think we saw with the previous session, there is a lot of excitement that's coming in. So if you could just give a wide picture of how all this fits within the wider ecosystem, but specifically, and I'll do the framing as this. So we all know the Africa AU Agenda 2063, which talks about the Africa we want, and it's this vision of a very kind of high standard of living and continental unity for the 56 states, including the African diaspora. So there is 100% no doubt that we've spoken about it, that young people are at the center of all of this. The creativity is an abundance, as you're seeing buzzing out there. The technology is now available, mobile in its most basic forms. But then we have a very huge asset here. So maybe the question that we can start with, how do we demystify esports for people who are not in this field? So when we talk about esports, what are we really talking about beyond the tournaments and competitions? And what's that engine for social and education impact looking like? It was spoken about in hindsight, but if you could speak through, from skills development, job creation, and unlocking youth opportunities. I'll start with Ivan at the extreme end, and then we shall come all the way down to Marvin.
All right. Good afternoon, those that are here. Those that are new to Uganda, you're welcome. And thank you for making the time. Again, I personally think these are conversations worth having. and we should find more ways of having such conversations. I'll speak to the point of how do we best communicate this to those that are not familiar with the industry. And I think for me, my first take would be communicating right and making sure that we're passing on the right communication when it comes to the actualities of the industry that we're in. I'll use an example. Today we had the national broadcasting television around. I think we had about 3 other media entities that were representing the media space in the country. And they were able to, document, capture news, and hopefully that bulletin is going to air maybe about 7 p.m. our time here in the evening news bulletin, and also at 9 p.m. So you're going to find that there could be a child watching this with their dad or their mom this evening, and the child would come out and say, hey mom, see, these are professional gamers and I would want to become a gamer. And let's say because this has been endorsed, we had, the mayor coming around here, so you're going to look at the fact that there is an upper level of endorsement when it comes to such conversations. So we need to be very careful when it comes to what we're communicating and making sure that we're not selling a facade of what the industry actually is. Because you're going to realize this is an aggressively youth-driven space. So youth minds are, like in its term, youth, they're developing. So a child is going to see this, and they're going to see all these endorsements, and they're going to see all these big brands back up the industry, and they're going to want to partake. So if we only communicate the aspects, the positive aspects about this industry, and we not go deep into the ways in which someone can succeed when it comes to gaming, I feel like we'll be doing the industry a disservice. Because this child will come out and say, I want to become a professional gamer, and let's say that parent is willing to support that effort. But then when they hit 30, they realize that, oh, I have no employment. So as stakeholders, what does that mean? We need to start developing these structures. We need to start developing companies, for lack of a better term. For those that know me, I have a slight pushback when it comes to federations. And not that they're not needed, but if federations are only fronted, I feel like most of the federations lie more towards the government, and they're more or less are structured within the government structures. So you find that because of how they approach their work, they borrow a lot from how general governments operate. And maybe we've also seen it here. I've seen the soccer federation, I've seen federations around other sports within the country. So I come off from the background of, can we have more companies being built within the esports ecosystem? Because I built a company, I'll have to compete. That means I'll have to pay people well. That means I have to set up certain systems and certain structures within my company to operate. And at the end of the day, I have to find profitability. And in that way, because I'm chasing for profitability, I'm going to have the funds to now, let's say, pay this esports athlete that I would sign to my team. So my biggest cry there is to see that we are able to come up with structures, come up with ecosystems that are profit-driven in order for us to sustain what we're building. The 2 biggest issues the creative industry faces, in my opinion, when it comes to Africa is, 1, professionalism, the other is resources, funds. The creative ecosystem lacks revenue coming in. And as we all know, one of the best ways of generating revenue is, through building effective companies, through building effective structures. And I think that's something that we need to talk more about. We need to communicate that. We need to have more of those deep conversations at a high level. And I do believe that's one of the ways in which you can move this industry forward. Yep.
Thanks. Yes, Ivan. Thank you so much. Jared?
So, I think, yeah. So technically, of course, talking about esports would be, I think, a very abstract layer of discussion, because you have to look through it. We have to look in depth what makes esports, or what makes a game, or what makes something competitive, which is games. I think one of the delegates from education, Ministry of Education, he was sending this message. People learn better through games, or he actually mentioned a very specific phrase: people learn through play. That's a very crucial word. So when we talk about sports, it's all about games, and it's all about play, and it's all about interaction, engagement, than immersion. So I think by saying that, we're saying games are the most beautiful product that human invented, which is a very engaging and interactive, and it's very immersive. So how do we utilize that product into something that can benefit the society? That's our homework. That's where the esports thing comes to the picture. So through building competitive environment or sports, which is a digital sports, sport can be one side of the benefit of games. People can create games, people can play games, people can create content about games, and people can organize tournaments. This is a huge multidisciplinary industry. I think by far it would be maybe like, I'm not prophesying something, but like I believe sports would be the biggest industry in the creative industries, and would be the second biggest industry next to manufacturing industry. Manufacturing is a huge industry, and like there is a lot to leverage there. So I think that would be like a nice way of encapsulating the whole concept of esports. So that's like something that the society can be benefited through games and play. And with that said, I think of course like we will go beyond games and how it can benefit the social or the society and the education as well. How it's modernizing the whole evolution of education, which is failing the youth right now. For example, in Addis or in Ethiopia, we have been assessing the whole education system, and it's failed twice. For the last 2 years, we are trying to reform the whole education system to make it more adaptive and somehow engaging for the youth. Because one of the things we're lacking is highly educated experts that can come through the education process. So, and one of the tools that the government is trying to adapt is gamification. I myself, I'm a gamification expert by profession. So we are trying to consult the ministry how to they implement these core elements into the current education platforms, curriculums, and the product they have, and somehow the methodology they are using to pass those message or like learning outcomes. Because I think by now the adult learning in pedagogy has failed the youth, so we have to find some new medium to teach our youth. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Let me just a recap of what Ivan said. I think I think he gave us a picture of this is a serious industry and needs to be treated seriously, and therefore you have to put the infrastructure in place for the kinds of jobs and economic value to be unlocked. Yared has set the stage really wonderfully, painting what I would move into. There's this new movement around serious games of edutainment, and esport then becoming a very active instrument in that regard, if I got you well.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Brian, what are your thoughts? And then Marvin.
First of all, before my thoughts, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a blast. I would like to take this opportunity to, first of all, thank the former Esports president of France, Desiree, for this opportunity, Team Sages, and Alliance Française for enabling me to be in the presence of all of you and to share the knowledge that I have gained over the years in the industry. That being said, I just had a conversation with the mayor, and I've realized, even after everything we talked about, he still did not get the concept of what esports and gaming is. He asked me, "This is gambling, right?" And I'm like, "No." Every time people outside gaming look at gaming, they look at esports, they look at us as they're wasting time, they don't know what they're doing, right? But in hindsight, we are becoming critical thinkers. We are solving problems. We are learning to be team members because we are in teams. You, as an esports athlete, you even learn discipline. Why? Because the first thing you do in the game is you lose. And if you don't have the patience, you're not going to stay playing that title. This cultivates a culture of you having patience to learn the game, to become good, to even get to a level where you're recognized as a player on a certain title. That being said, I will pull to my lived experience because a lot of the things have already been said here. My experience started in a cave somewhere in Kibera slums. I used to run away from school to go to play video games. Back then it was an escape because life was hard and I only had control in the games. When I was playing video games, I felt like I can drive a car, I own a house. I didn't even think about esports before. And what did this do for me? As a young person, first of all, it took me back to school. Why? There is no game made in our mother tongue or our native language, which is Swahili, right? It's all in English. So I had to go to school, get a dictionary, and when I'm playing, I'm researching the words so that I can solve the problems in the game. So indirectly, gaming took me back to school. I can speak English fluently because of video games, right? Going forward, I ventured into esports. New world, I don't know anything that is going on. Tournaments are not there, and if they are there, they don't even have enough prize pool. And if they do have enough prize pool, you don't have enough money to register. I thank God I was skilled enough that in some tournaments, I used to tell the owner, let me play, I'll win, and then I'll pay using the money I win. So I used to pay the registration after participating in the tournament. Yeah, this has been my journey. And what am I saying about this? What is esports? Esports has made me become this person I am today. From a kid who was gaming in the slums, playing video games just for fun, to esports athlete, one of the first in the country. I've become the country's first gaming mentor, where I went coaching young players. We have Queen Arrow, thanks to me, because when I got there, first of all, I was like, these people are playing a lot of FIFA. There's Tekken. I want ladies to have something too. So during the tour of Blaze, we introduced Tekken, and we have Queen Arrow, one of the best ladies in the region. Going forward, I got the opportunity to speak even at international spaces because of gaming. So when people look at esports, they just see somebody sitting in front of a screen. But me, when I look at esports, it's my career. It has given me everything. And what other careers are in esports? Right now, we have journalists covering this. They are esports, they are journalists in gaming, right? We have the moderator. She's doing this in gaming. This is a job. They have me. I'm a speaker now. I'm a mentor. Graphic designers. All this beautiful stuff you're seeing behind us is all in the ecosystem of gaming. So every time somebody says, gaming is wasting time, I always want to do a backflip and curse, but I remember we are where we are, and we need to raise that awareness for people to get to the level where they understand what gaming is, video games is, and how they can be part of it. And even on that note, I would like to forward a question to the moderator and the rest of you. If I was able to learn these things on my own, without any classes, no YouTube, no nothing, what do you think Africa would look like in a few years if we are able to have college, university, esports leagues, like government inclusion in these esports programs that we're doing? How do you see this landscape looking if it's directed and given a path to follow, you know? Like right now, there's a lot of gamers, and I said, talent is there, but it's not being nurtured, it's just everywhere. How do we consolidate it, give it a direction, and package it as something as, this is esports, African esports? Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Hold that question he asked. What's the path to follow? We'll get feedback from you once we hear from Marvin. But I loved...
yes. That is for them to internalize,
yes.
So they can just go sit and think.
They will respond by the time.
Okay.
And also, like what he said, gaming took him back to school. And I think for me, esports took him back to school. I think that to me is absolutely brilliant. Okay. So Marvin, how about you?
Hello. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank Mr. Desiree for this opportunity, and thank you all for being here. Well, by the time the mic reaches here, all the points have been given. However, I'll try to do something different, you know. It's more of social, more of my life, you know. Esports started a long time ago, I think in the 1970s. And over a period of 20 years, there was argument, this shouldn't be called the esports. It's not a sport. You cannot call it e-athletes. They had given it e-athletes or v-gaming or stuff like this. And the first ever esport tournament in US, was it? The winner was given a subscription for what? Yeah, something like that, just subscription, you know. It's evolved over the years, and where we've reached, really, I can imagine the next 5 years will be somewhere, you know, greater. Now, let me talk about myself. Professionally, I'm arguably one of the best Forex and crypto traders here. Even after leaving esports or gaming, it kind of found its way back to me. I'll get back to that. Now, as I was a kid, I'm an INFJ. This is like the world's rarest personality type. It's like the 1% of the world. We interact differently, socially different, very introverted. We analyze. We are not like, it's very hard for us to socialize, you know, with other people. So you find you're all alone, you are happy being alone, you recharge when you're alone, and all that. So in esport, gaming, no one would want to play with me because football or running, yet I had the talent because I figured it out later in high school. I was short-sighted. I'm myopic. I'm visually impaired. I can't see clearly without glasses. So they kick the ball, you miss it, you know. That is the worst player. No one wants to team up with you. You are all alone. You're lonely, you know. So I'll just go back home to my computer, some old Pentium 3, you know. You're trying to hide, play games, then that, you know, that power button gives you a you know, you got to press escape. And the PlayStation 2 with that bang sound, you know, and you're hiding, you don't want your parents to know and all this. But parents understand. There is a way they look at things, and you may think you're doing something wrong, but they understand. That's how you are. That's how you're social. So I would play games, recharge with my computer, you know, with my PlayStation. It was like my safe haven or safe place, yeah. And over time, I quit. Okay, I kind of say I left gaming because I had to do my professional career as a trader. But then you are waiting for setups, like you analyze, or you're waiting for a big news event. And it's like late at 4 a.m., you don't want to sleep, then you go gaming, you know. You pass some time, have fun. So that's how I find my way back to gaming, even when I was doing, you know, or I want to analyze markets and everything is hard, and you need to sharpen up, you've just woken up, play a game, critical thinking, make quick decisions. Now you're sharp and you get into the work, you know. That's how I found my way back to gaming, you know. So socially, I've really been happy with my journey because no one would understand me. No kid wanted to play with me. I was visually impaired. However, if I put in the work, I could represent Uganda in athletics, 100-meter sprints, Paralympics, because I'm fast. I was a very fast sprinter in high school. I later discovered some talents, dance, art, everything. But all this, gaming found its way back to me. So I think that's it.
No, that's beautiful, Marvin. I think just giving a taste of how, gaming became your friend and your companion. And I think that's something that it's the more kind of softer but more critical skill that has emerged from that. All right, just so that I don't let the conversation end again. Marvin, I'll come back to you. So you are part of, yes, you're a professional gamer, but you're also part of the team that's really building the university leagues, yeah? So my question, I guess, is if any institution, whether it's a university or a school, wants esport to produce education and employability outcomes, what does that pathway look like from club to league to skills to industry opportunities? I think building also on what Brian was saying, what is the pathway? Could you give us a sense of what that looks like?
Right now in US, there are about 200 colleges, universities that are doing professional esport leagues inter US, inter what? And over 5,000 players. And all these, they are scholarships. They have scholarships for them. How they start? They just start simple like here. We have in high school, in universities, I think more in high school, we have clubs. We have a debate club, a robotics club, a patriotic club, football clubs. This is how things start, as a club. Yeah, and later grows as a league, and later on, of course, behind that, we have, it's so similar with ICT. It's just like one of our favorite classes were always the computer lessons, because you have fun, you get to see what you've done with your hands. You have an idea, you put it there, you play cards, you have it, or draft or chess, and you see your results, and you're happy. It's fun, it's interactive. It's not the theory. That's why esports has also helped, gaming has also helped produce better learners in the other fields, in school, critical thinking, teamwork, and analysis, and all these are opportunities for them in a professional sense. Editors, analysts, game developers, content creators. We know I show speed. I don't know how much his net worth is, but it's crazy, right? And just does all this at the back of his room, in his gaming room, stream live, play games, make money, become famous, sign deals, contracts, and that's how he's made it, And I think from there, we earlier on, I started with Bonnie in the same school. That's how we met. Same school, same class, and this was in a few years ago, not so many years ago because we're young. But after our high school, we came back as old boys, and we started on sports day. We started putting esports, gaming, not only field events, athletics, football, we had E. And we started from St. Lawrence, London College, and it gave us a platform. That's how we started, before the idea of the university games. So we'd put PlayStations, let kids play, no funding, no nothing. the winner gets like 500K to 1 million. That's about $150 to $300, you know. And we did it with passion, you know. And from there, that's when the ideas of the university league started. We created one, then the next year, which was last year, we created another which was a little bit more successful than the previous ones. Of course, without funding, without anything, and it was really good. You'd see kids playing, fighting for it, fighting for bragging rights. You know, I'm the best in the university, in all universities in the country. And from this is where we can give birth to other leagues. We are starting an eFootball league on the 18th this month. We can look at collaborations with official clubs. Now, in Morocco, for example, they play a league called eBotola. And it's an eFootball EAFC tournament. They are signed by official football clubs like Raja Casablanca, these top clubs, right? We have clubs here as well, KCCA, all these clubs. And they are paid, you know, they represent the club. The club doesn't just need representative on the field, also in the gaming side of things, you know. So this is how things start. Of course, it's a process, but we are making progress, you know. And yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Marvin. Brian, next over to you. And
Can you get the question back?
yes, the question. I know you're probably trying to add on what he's already saying. But in addition to that, also, I mean, you've lived and you've built it, and you're so passionate about really, as you say, just helping youth and really amplifying the role that gaming and esports really has. I'm really keen to hear from you, especially if there are partners in the room. What does it take? What's the minimum, I think, minimum structure that would be needed to make that impact reliable? You get people in, but how do you sustain them? What would it take from your experience?
Okay. From my lived experience, one thing I've noticed that is holding us back is lack of awareness all across the board, from the people running the events to the people who want to partake in the events. So when I talk about the people, it's the organizers, tournament organizers, the game developers, and the gamers themselves. I'll give an example. African-made games are mostly played outside Africa. And in Africa, it's the titles that are famous outside that are being played here. Okay? That is one. Why? People don't know we are already making our games. They don't know where to access our games. That already is a barrier. Number two, people throw around the word esports without knowing what it takes to be an esports athlete. Yeah? Again, I'll draw to the example. Just right now, talking to the mayor, he said he could beat me. And I looked at him and I'm like, sir, you could bet your whole wealth. I know you don't like gambling. You could bet your whole wealth. I will play with you here for 1 year straight. You will never win even a single game. Why? This is not something you just understand off the fly. It's something you sit down with, you research, you get to understand. It's like sports, but you have to put time in it. I use the example of Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not the best because he's the best. He's the best because he puts time in it. If he's not training in that other pitch, he's playing in the actual pitch. And that's the same thing for us. The more time I spend on that, the better I become. This is knowledge that is not out there. So everybody sees you sitting in front of a screen and they're like, I can beat him. And the guys have come. Like, I have people who have come to challenge me and I'm like, yeah, today we'll play. But the point is, people still do not know how to be part of the space. So the challenge is going to be, how do we teach it? Again, I would like to use examples from France, but the problem is we are not in France. You see, in France, they have people like Desiree and the president who understand esports. He has taken 20 years developing one event. This is not even the esports president part. No, this is Gamers Assembly. It's just gaming first. Do we have people like that around who understand how to do that? Now, when you start asking yourself such questions is when you start narrowing down where to start from. Yeah, I mean, you can say you want to do esports, but if the people you want to do esports for don't understand, it's meaningless. They have to first of all know you're doing for them esports and how they can be part of it. For example, any gamers in the house? Ah, yes, there's gamers in the house. So, how many hours does it take you to become a pro esports athlete? Just shout it out. How many hours? 10,000. One last one. Okay. You need at least 1,000 hours in one title for you to call yourself an esports athlete. Yeah? For me to say I'm an esports athlete, I have to have a minimum of 1,000 hours if I'm supposed to be in a team. So things like this are not knowledgeable out there. So again, from my understanding is start from the ground up. We are drawing examples from places these things already work and they have infrastructure for that. We do not have infrastructure for that. Start with telcos. Our telecommunications, we don't have good internet. And our internet doesn't connect to the servers because we don't even have the gaming servers. So how do we become part of the global community if we can't be able to even connect? Oh, how do I unpack that? So for people who don't know, most of the games when they say you play online, the game requires you to have a gaming server for the title you're playing on. Yeah? So most of the people you'll see, they're saying, I'm going to play FC online. He's going to play against somebody in their home and they're different places on their consoles. The connectivity is what matters. So if somebody has poor internet, the whole experience is bad. Now, what makes it worse for us here in Africa, we don't even have the gaming servers. So imagine I cannot play against a Nigerian. We are all Africans. I can only play with people going down. It doesn't even make sense to the extent I can play with somebody from South Africa online perfectly, but I cannot play with somebody from Uganda. Okay? And these are the things we overlook. So you'll see somebody come and say, I want to do an online tournament because it's cheap. People don't have to come. But the connectivity issue is still there. The game developers, we're not even friends with them. We haven't told them, hey, gamers are here, come and do this. You see? We have skipped all of that and started doing it. So from my experience, what I would advise or how I see this work is we start from the grassroots. What do we have? What is working? How do we use what is already working to now, build from there? Instead of skipping the steps, because we are skipping these steps, but it's going to bite us in front. All players will want to go to play in France. Can all of us go to France? We don't have fare, it's expensive. Every day I'm online telling guys to give me their lunch money, It's crazy. So imagine if it's crazy for me, look at that upcoming gamer who has interest in that. So I believe the way to start is from your grassroots. Those people who are interested, those are the ones you start building with. And you build that community going up, building from every side. Don't just focus on esports. I was in Evo in France last year with Desiree. And there were 7, almost 8 tournaments going on. And within the venue, they introduced a new game. Yeah. So you find that they piggybacked on the community that was already there to introduce something new. They didn't go to look for anybody new. Yeah. So things like this, we need to find a way to do things from the grassroots according to our environments as Uganda, as Kenya, as Tanzania. And then we'll start thinking about regional. Let's now do something between Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya. And then now let's go global. Then now we're not skipping steps, we're actually taking the steps to grow. I think this would be a good way to start from my experience. And also this is a question I could forward to the audience again as well. If government and esports communities and the telcos come together to do something, do you think it would work or is it going to fail? Because right now we have government, esports, telcos. We don't have them in one space. So if we have these people in one room, these are them. If we have them in one room, would we be able to move forward? That would be, a question I want them to think and see how to,
Fantastic. I was actually going to say, Ivan has interacted with a couple of telcos. Yeah, if you could build on that and then...
All right, thank you. I'm sorry for skipping the line, but I just wanted to pick up from something Brian pointed out. You asked, why don't we have telcos investing in this space? And what I can say to that is that we have failed to make this space, we failed to make sense of this space for investment. And that's why for me, it's really particular that we look at how does the esports ecosystem, where does it start from? it starts from publishers. These publishers are for-profit organizations. They are for-profit. So you're going to realize that if you're going to make sense of anything that comes after a publisher, it has to dance to the tune of profitability. And that equates to the sustainability that we're looking for. So personal areas come from that background that I can't go to MTN and expect them to sponsor my event because it's esports. I need to make sure that I've established a certain framework that speaks their language, you know, and that's why I feel like we may be going wrong as we set our expectations when it comes to the industry. We come off the claim of, oh, this is something that's, youth are engaging in it, but we're failing to make it make sense for conversion. And I think for me, that's my biggest cry. And that's something that I'll always champion because I want to see this industry push towards sustainability. I've managed to study some of the top organizations in the industry, 100 Thieves, Optic, and you get to realize that some of the struggles that these enterprises are facing is, sustainability. And that's why I always come off from the aspect of, can we develop sustainable structures? Can I make sense of what I'm doing to MTN such that MTN can sponsor me? And I feel like if we put a bit of a focus there, we shall see a bit of growth in the industry because at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. And it's, my biggest cry to most of the stakeholders in this room, how do we start, pivoting towards that direction? And I also come in from a gaming background because as much as, I'm sitting at this panel, I'm now running a company in gaming. I was a gamer myself. And I played Call of Duty to the level of literally last night when, the team was setting up for this event. I was running a stream and we had an online wager. So at the end of the day, I'm still a gamer at heart, much as I also represent gaming from maybe a professional standpoint. And I believe as a person who's interacting with gamers, I get to understand what these individuals are looking for. I would love to see more of them come into such rooms because you might find maybe half of the individuals I was playing with last evening may not be attending such events. So we need to find gamers where they are. That's the other plug-in. We need to get really authentic about the industry, and hone more into most of the other pop culture elements when it comes to gaming. But most importantly for me, it's really sustainability. I think we've looked a lot at what Saudi is doing, but again, when you look at how Saudi is sponsoring the Esports World Cup, they're leveraging the Sovereign Wealth Fund. That's a fund. That fund could easily deplete within the next 5 years. So what happens to a child right now who has looked at the Esports League in Saudi, the Esports World Cup in Saudi, and says that, oh, I want to participate. But by the time they are of age, maybe Saudi has pulled out. I think we recently saw a bit of the buzz around the Esports Olympics. I think they pulled the plug. So that's something that happened. But I kid you not, there are individuals that came out and said that, oh, there's an Esports Olympics happening and, I want to participate. Let me start practicing. Let me leave school to represent my team at the Esports Olympics. But because we've not studied the background of the Esports Olympics and what's sustaining it, you find that we make certain decisions based off how we feel, and we're not looking into how sustainable is this industry and how sustainable can we make it. Because as much as I always put that question out there, I always look back internally and say, am I also doing my part? I'm not just asking the question of, oh, how are we making this sustainable? I'm also making sure that I'm answering that for myself and also making sure that I'm making it make sense for MTN and I'm putting efforts towards that. So I would want to see more of such conversations come up and not just relying on the hype around gaming, but actually sitting down and coming up with frameworks of how we're going to drive this to profitability. Because again, I would remind you, we're not the consumers of this product. It's it's the young audience, the youth. So they're relying on our thought leadership when it comes to this industry. A gamer out there who's playing right now is relying on conversations that are being had into this room to build a career around. So if we resist and not have the right conversations that ascertain the sustainability of what this gamer is banking on, then we're creating a problem in that when we are away, we shall have left this individual the same way he was at that grassroots level. So I think that's my push, and this was building up from Brian's question of why isn't Airtel, why isn't MTN sponsoring, and I think that's not a question for them, it's a question for us, and it's also us to find that solution.
Let me answer you. It's a question for them because let's say Airtel, does it only cater to esports athletes? It caters to thousands of casuals. If you go to TikTok right now, each and every one of you will find somebody playing there, streaming, right? How do they do it? They are using the said telcos, right? So in hindsight, they're already there. It's them to amplify the connectivity, and the developers will be like, oh, this guy's already doing this. I mean, look at Orange. Orange is doing amazing stuff in North Africa, in West Africa. In this other region, there's nothing going on. What different are the guys in West and North Africa doing that we are not doing? We are gaming, we are always online, we have these events happening. Right now, there are a couple of kids live streaming, and they're not live streaming they're live streaming from the said telcos that I'm talking about, But from East Africa going downwards, it's push and pull. It's not about showing them the value. The value is all round from everyone. The gamers come in, they spend time, the best internet. Like what I saw happening in Saudi. Every week, the telcos that are there is a competition. Gamers log in the speeds they get from the internet, okay? And they table it down. At the end of the week, the government looks at it and says, this company is working very well. So they give them incentives to, increase what they're doing in terms of output for the gamers. We don't have such over here. And again, it goes to all of us. We cannot say we show them. Some of them don't even know what we are doing. Most of the people who run the companies in Africa do not understand what gaming is. Like, again, I'll pull the example of the mayor. We explained, we showed everything. But he has that understanding that this is what this is. And before you overcome that mindset, it's going to be too long. We're going to spend weeks trying to break that mindset to make him understand this is what we are doing. No, it doesn't need to be that. We should show them the numbers. Right now, I should go and tell MTN, come and look at this event. All these kids are your potential clients in the future. Yeah? Right now, they're in school. When they finish school, what are they going to use? They're going to use MTN. If MTN catered for them as gamers right now and gave them the opportunities, when they grow up, basically you have groomed your customer. By the time they grow up and they're able to pay for their gaming, they know MTN is the telco to use. Am I right? Or, that's it. So it's about meeting in the middle. Us being able to show up the way these gamers have shown up, and then they also show up and try to close the gap. Because one way or another, everybody benefits from it if it works well. Yeah, that's the thought.
Fantastic. And before I come to you, Yared, first of all, Ivan, yes, both of you raised very pertinent questions for the times we're in. And it's actually exciting that those conversations are happening in tandem, right? Because the realities of what you've raised about, quite frankly, money follows money. Show us the business, and stakeholders beyond those, as Ronnie said earlier, beyond the passion, it is the money that's going to attract people to actually invest. And that's the reality of the creative industry as well. We can really talk, I come from that field, so over 30 years, there's been music, there's been film, there's been fashion, but it hasn't gotten the attention and the seriousness that it's getting now. Why? Because for a very long time, industries, especially in markets such as ours, which are intangible, IP, it's an intangible, you can't touch it. I can touch, agriculture, show me the product, I'll see. But when it comes to intangible assets like IP, which is really where we are trading, we really need to, as you say, demystify and follow where the money is. The challenge is when we do not have the reserve, when we are not the containers of the money, the publishers are not here, right? So the money is it's almost like going back to that. So our governments and our policymakers don't have visibility on the value that this industry is bringing. So it's taken over 30 years, and only recently for the creative industries have they been able to, and tourism as well, to show and track where the economic value is, right? So music, for example, a lot of investments in data, the data, the behind the scenes, the royalties are now, people can actually come and say, this is what Spotify is returning to Ugandan royalty owners. And the government says, oh, this is the real money, thank you, now we are interested. But it took over 30 years for the creative economy and the creative industry to get the kind of attention that they needed to move from creative for the sake of creative, but creative as a business. And now the conversations are, we speak about the creative industry, not as the industry, but the economy. So it's the business of music, it's the business of fashion, it's the business of film, right? And this applies across the rest of Africa. Nollywood, we know the same narrative. We've talked about Nollywood being the biggest pop producer, but when you look at the numbers, it just doesn't add up. South Africa beats by far because they have the infrastructure to monetize. So I like that this conversation is happening now, as opposed to 30 years from now. And we are actually meeting in the middle. Is developers and creators and gamers are playing regardless, but we're also asking institutions to come join the room so that we can move at the same time. So that's really, really exciting. Now, Yared, I know we're running out of time. You actually have your feet in the creative and digital economy, right? Because again, this industry is, it sits in multiple fields. Like sports is trying to figure out what does it mean within the language of sports. It sits in the digital economy as well, but also it sits in the creative economy because at the backbone of all of these, they're creators. So I'm very keen to hear from your end. How do we get multiple stakeholders in the room beyond just the players? We are looking for creators. We are looking for, we talked about the importance of representation. Who is building these assets? The fashion, the music, film. How does it connect and the create and wider digital economy to esport? That's a mouthful, but I hope you get where I'm going.
I think the shorter answer would be like a festival like DJ Art Fest. I think we need more of this. That's like the best case scenario. So because like it's all about awareness. I think that's something we lack in Africa, to be honest. Because like of course like esports in general is a new emerging industry, but it's the whole integration of like the creative industry or the orange economy ties down into how aware the community is. So, and I think the second part would be like trust, of course, because like it's a new industry and like nobody wants to take a risk, like, or like go out of their comfort zone, because like it's risky. And as a businessman, you have to calculate that risk. You don't want to jump into something new, like letting go what's working right now. So when we talk about awareness, I think my friend Rooney was mentioning currently what we need, or like what we need in position, basically like fundamentally on federations and associations. We need someone who creates that linkage between those industries. I wouldn't say I'm a gamer, of course. Like I wouldn't say like we don't need gamers, but like of course for now we need someone who can build this from the ground. That's what we need. We need someone not only just like work on lobbying the politicians or like advocating on the policy level, but who thinks like an entrepreneur. We need someone who help the youth build a venture out of the whole esports scene. So that's what we did in Ethiopia, because our association currently working on like advocating or like consulting our youth to start a business. So for example, I have a friend, he's a very passionate gamer. Now he's joining into the tournament direction in production, in broadcasting. So what we did was we set up a meeting with all the stakeholders, map the whole ecosystem from from the production to the consumer end, and what's left, what is the gap in the middle that makes the whole esport industry, or in general the whole orange economy, to be investable. My friend was mentioning that as well. How to make that investable? That's a crucial part. So if you answer that, I think onboarding everyone would be as one event. Just call everyone into one event and just like create a platform where they can meet and greet each other and they can discuss whatever they want. We just need to create the environment first. I think the good example would be like Rooney, of course. Like I will mention your name again and again for now. So he was mentioning about like the athletics. Now nobody can run like Kenyans for long distance, and Ethiopians we are good as well, of course. And East Africa in general, we are good at long distance running. It's not because it's not because it's given, or like it's not something that came through like like from the sky and like we get it from like inheritance. It's because the environment we have. We are living in a place where we can like I think I'm very bad at biology, but like it somehow benefit us to perform better in long distance running. So you have to create that environment to enable everyone to use. So of course, like we can set an example, like in the Western, what was they did well in that something we did not. It's not about that. It's about the environment. It's about the exposure we give for the use. So the first phase would be like creating that environment where that fosters ventures, like business who can work in broadcasting, productions, who can organize events. Not the federation shouldn't be like an organizer. There should be a business that organizes events. The federation should create that environment where all the stakeholders meet and create something big. We're not asking for, or like we're not requiring. Of course, like there is a possibility, or like there is a resource where we can host a big tournament. Because that's not the point. The point: how do we make this last for a while or for long? We have to think wider or longer. There should be someone who can look the whole vision. So that would be someone I think we should have in those positions. Those who can create an environment that fosters the venture side, and in the meantime advocates about esports and create awareness through the society. Because I think by far one thing I learned from my past like 7 years of journey in esports is that the society listens through like the conventional communication platforms, which is like, of course, as an individual, I can go out and like on the stage and speak the whole day. No one can listen to me. And if you have federation, association, if someone speaks out, people tend to believe that. So that gives the association or the federation or anybody that's working on the esports scene, give it a privilege to build a trust between the society and the industry and create awareness about esports. So, and of course, like the government as well, they have to listen and learn about what's esports, what's gaming, what's play in general, and how it impacts the society. And the last thing would be, I think, once we get there and once we have the environment that facilitates the ventures and like once the awareness is created, the second phase would be like the regulatory. How do we control this? Because like I think the best example is TikTok. We have TikTok that's harming the society, like in Africa, but in China that's not happening because they are the creators. They own the product. They can regulate it. So like as an entrepreneur, what we have right now, I mean, to be frankly, we are way behind in esports, which is a good thing. We can paint the whole picture of esports in Africa as our own. We can control the narrative. We can build it as it is ours. So that's my message from like this side.
Thank you. That's brilliant. I like that it's the technology. I mean, esports is it may be new, it's not entirely new, but it's young for us, and that means we have room to hack and decide what it will look like. Oh, fantastic. My last question goes to you, Ivan. Let's talk, taking you back to the investability of the sector. Now, if there is, if you look across the value chain, what would you say is the lowest hanging fruit, where the most investable part of that value chain of esport, which would reap the biggest impact? Where would you hit first? And then I'll open up to the rest of the room for 2 questions. Yes, Brian. Ivan.
All right, just to make sure I get your question, you're wondering what would be the best area to invest when it comes to the industry?
Where we are now.
Where we are now, like in the local context? If I was to invest in... Oh, I'm already investing, actually. I personally think the first place that anyone should invest in while working in the industry is branding. And I think it's the most cost-effective way of building a product within esports. When you leverage branding, and when I say branding, I'm encompassing things like content, aspects to do with your presentation, because you're going to find that as you're bootstrapping and as you're looking for money, what are you communicating? So I leverage the concept of, I may not have a product yet, but I'm already marketing myself as I build a product in the back end, versus waiting to have a product and then struggle with marketing. So, and that's something that we also did at Arodian. I believe when it came to me getting into gaming and esports, I came from a traditional sports background. In my high school, I used to run a private rugby sports brand. So we would host rugby school games during holidays. So after school, we had like a mini private rugby league. We would have students register, because at school there was always that challenge of, I can't play with my friend if he's in that other school. So we created a private league where, regardless of the school you're from, as long as you have friends, you can come up with teams and play together. So I come from that background of rugby. And initially I wanted to get deep into rugby, but from a sports entertainment perspective. But then I realized, because the rugby had certain structures that were limiting to some of the concepts I had, I fell on esports. Because esports met 2 things. It met the sports entertainment mindset I had. It met both sports and also met the entertainment. So that's how I get into esports. Now, fast forward to your question. We went branding first, because initially I was not a big gamer, to be honest. I didn't play much. I think I bought my first console in 2019. That's how close. But I leveraged the fact that, let me build in public. Let me put out as much content as I can. Let me show people. Let me actually show. So you find that I was able to both gain the experience of being a gamer, but most importantly, I was able to start building positioning for the business. So from your question of where would you recommend investment, I think that would be the first place that I would recommend anyone. Recently, I saw a post from, I think, Ronnie, you're running a Sarit League soon, something of the sort. There's a Sarit League that you posted up recently. It's EAFC. And that alone, because the poster looked amazing. You know, I was like, oh, this is something that looks amazing. You know, the way they did the graphics and things of that sort. So that poster had return on investment, because it picked up my attention, and maybe he didn't have to spend much doing it. So as we're figuring out most of the fundamentals to do the industry, I would recommend invest in the presentation, because we need to aggressively make sure we are authentic to the industry. This industry is massively pop culture driven. So if you don't fit the pop culture narrative, it's very hard for someone to relate with you. It's very hard for the person you're trying to target, the gamers, the youth, to relate with what you're putting out. So I would go straight, go hard on investing in my presentation, even though, because most of the individuals in the industry are bootstrapping. That's why there is a massive gap when it comes to resources. And I mean, even Brian, getting to know you, I didn't get to know you from anywhere else apart from your content, you know, and that created a conversation, and that enabled me to subscribe to your platforms and get to know you. You are building your brand. So that's why I think it's the best way to invest, because you gave us your journey of how you started, and we didn't see all that, but I got to first see you when you created a video and posted it up. So I think that's what we fundamentally need to start from, and then now look into things like conversion. And I'll just maybe sum up this, a quick bit of, you know, what Brian was commenting. And the key word for me is conversion, because I can have an event like this. Let's say if MTN has sponsored an event like this and have over 10,000 individuals come and attend it. But the biggest question MTN is going to have is, have I converted? Yeah, that's the biggest question. So I think I'm not saying that gaming does not have opportunity to convert. I'm more or less pushing the conversation of, we need to find the points of conversion. That's what I mean when I say we need to speak the investor language. Because at the end of the day, we've had brands invest in what was called the esports bubble, which I believe burst about last year. We got to see so many teams pulling out. We got to see so many sponsors pulling out. So you find that the reason when you ask why are they pulling out is because, yes, this thing seemingly had potential. It had the numbers, but it lacked conversion. Whereby I have 10,000 people in here, I've sponsored it as a brand, but at the end of the day, when I close those gates, I've not converted. Much as there could be a future conversion, because most, let's say, automobile companies like Audi, why they sponsor esports is because they believe that if I start with this child at that age and they're seeing my logo in front of a Tekken tournament during the ad time, this child, once they of age 16, 18, and they want to buy a car, they would want to buy the Audi. So that's kind of the reference, yeah? But now the question is, for how long does the brand have to wait to convert? Are they willing to incur that loss of pumping thousands of dollars into this league and hope that this kid, maybe he's about 6, 5, maybe 10, 6 years, are the brands willing to wait for 6 years to recoup investment? And now that's where us as stakeholders, we need to see how do we make this space have a faster return on investment for these brands. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I will allow 2 questions from the audience. I feel like there's Brian threw some questions back to you, so those would like to respond. But if you have just 2 questions, and then we shall close our this really incredible session. Any questions? Yes.
There's a mic there, I think, so it's okay.
Hi. Hello. So, Brian, I have a question regarding the issue with the servers. Don't you think that's a serious, it's a top-down approach? It's something similar to having nuclear weapons as far as Africa is concerned. Isn't that true?
Wait, come on.
Africa being in charge of its servers, or having servers here, because our telecoms do have servers, but they seem to piggyback from servers outside Africa. So it seems to me that African sovereignty as far as servers are concerned is an issue akin to weapons of mass destruction and what's the other thing? Banking. You know, like SWIFT, for example.
Yes.
So how do we go about that then?
How do we go about that? Is that excuse for us? No, it's not ours.
All right.
Okay, so quick one. When I talk about the whole issue, the servers that we're not solving now, ours, what can we solve? The telcos, right? They sell bundles. I don't know what is sold here in Uganda, but it needs to be subsidized because most of these people participating in esports and gaming are young people, right? You want to make it accessible for them. You know, there's the bare minimum that we can go online and play, in as bad as it is. That's how we've been playing, right? But we have our local problems from our local ISPs. That is what I was talking about first. They need to clean up house and make it make sense for the gamers. Sorry about that. They need to make it make sense for the gamers. The issue about servers, that's a problem for the future. It's not for now. A way we could tackle that, African game development, we have slept on that. We could make our own games and host our own servers. Is that something that is not possible? It is possible. Yeah. Again, like I said, we want to start from the top, but we are down here. The thing is is everything around us working for us the way it should before we even go for the servers and everything else? We should make everything down here make sense first, and then when we go to those guys and say we want the servers, we meet the requirements at least, and it makes sense for everyone else. So on that point, I was not saying like they have to give us servers. They actually don't have to. In fact, they believe in Africa there are no gamers. People like me, to them, we are not people. And it's okay. But here, my value is seen and my input is seen. This is where I matter. So this is where I push for. So for me, I would just say it's to the ISPs to make sense to the gamers. Have products that enable the gamers to be able to, go that online, even if it's bad. Let it be bad that it's not there, but not it's bad because you're using bad internet. Or let's say, for instance, when it rains, our power just goes. Things like this. It's a rule of thumb in Africa. Like when it rains, electricity will go. Things like this. Imagine you're in an online tournament. All of a sudden you disconnect. Are you going to explain to them, so when it starts raining, we don't have electricity? No, they don't care. That's your problem. So these are the kinds of things I'm saying we start dealing with first before we even go to tell them, hey, we want service. Yeah? We have options. I think the one thing we sit and believe is we don't have options. We are dependent so much on them that they do whatever they want. But we have the power. Don't you have the telcos? Don't you have the power? Don't you have the gamers? Don't you have the game developers? We literally have everyone. It's just a matter of bringing them into one space, making them know who is doing what, connecting them, and we build our own thing. It's an option as well. Yeah.
I think I have a quick answer to Kaya's question on the server aspect. In my thinking, when the little evaluation I've done when it comes to, or maybe one of the many problems, or two of the many problems that I think most publishers are facing when it comes to hosting local servers here is to do more with actually how our economies are structured as countries. So you find that there are various risks, and maybe this could be one of, in my opinion, one of the core fundamental focuses for federations in Africa is to find a way of speaking to governments. Yeah, it's a very big problem, mind you. But if they could find a way of speaking to governments, and we come up with certain policies that safeguard things like data, because I believe cybercrime is, because of the lack of data, creates the distrust from these publishers when it comes to our integrity. When we're looking at how secure if I put my server in Uganda, how secure is my data? So you may find that this could be something federations could actually push. Off head, I would really look at a federation's major mandate would be getting local servers, because at the end of the day, hosting these local servers still has something to do with the government in a way, because these individuals have to now use the local infrastructure. And if the government creates an environment where publishers can have their local servers within locally when they're hosted on-prem, and then they also create an ecosystem where it's secure, then maybe Riot will be willing to, or Activision could be willing to send a server over here when they know that if I send my server to Kampala, it's protected in a way that is not going to create any sort of cyber hacks happening. So I think that could be one of the major challenges. It's again to do with data. That's why I send it back to the government, because they're one of the best data points in the country. Consolidating data is a good thing, and just federations maybe keeping a bit of an eye when it comes to data and how our governments are keeping data may help us quite a lot in that regard. Yeah.
Fantastic. You think that's it? Any more questions, concerns, anxieties? Oh, there you go.
Hello. Well, thank you guys for coming up with such wonderful ideas. And I was, chatting with Ronnie here. This conversation moves to the next step, in the sense that when I hear players dream and aspire, it rejuvenates us in a sense that we understand the difficulties we have on the ground of their aspirations to be actualized. We deal with these governments. We know how difficult it is to, in terms of policies, in terms of just regulations, in terms of financing, obvious, nothing comes there. I have in the morning just say, like, look, my sports law was made in 1967. Do you know how difficult it has gone? How many years? I was not born in 1967. Do you see the difficulty? So I'm saying it's not that the governments are against, but there is a juggernaut that works very slow and sometimes goes back and front and stuff like that. So what I would suggest is support your federations. If players would back their federations, we would not only be energized, but the government will listen. You see what I'm saying? One of the things that is low-hanging fruit that is not happening is that not enough players push or support, speak for the federations. So if the federations, as they are, many of them, people pull their money, pay for office, pay for electricity, pay for this, pay for that, for years. I've been paying I pay around $800 a month for an office for the federation. $800. So from a player perspective, he wouldn't understand these things. And that's just rent. You're talking about, because you do other business, I do other businesses, I make money elsewhere. The president does, and a team. So, but they believe in esports. That's why the investment keeps going on. That's why we are there. Ronnie knows these are the kind of things that they also do. I believe in other countries as well. So what I would suggest is just that if the Beast does support, and I believe he does, because otherwise he wouldn't be here, speaks for the federation, it will go great length. And in fact, not all of you, 10% of players, if they come and speak on behalf of the federation, the government will listen easily. I think Ronnie wants to add something. Is that okay?
And it's because we need to learn from what you've said about film and music. You know why in Kenya we have an example, because I'm a trained teacher and I was a student leader in campus. We used to laugh at doctors and nurses. Why? When Kenya was making the new constitution, they never took part in what you call public participation, where government comes and sits with these people in a hall. What does the law become? So to date, whenever doctors are striking, it's never clear if it's the national government or the regional governments that should sort their problems. But when teachers have an issue, they are very clear they are dealing with the Teachers Service Commission. And within a week, their issues are sorted. That's our weakness in the creative industry. If you go to people in film, if you go to people even now developing games, people don't see value in federation, in association. And our issues are vast. It's when they are presented as an industry. And that's why in Africa, if you look at people who are considered to be in the lower tier of the economy, they are very well organized. Look at the farmers and the circles, because they pull together. But people who are considered to be in high value, engineers, lawyers, doctors, they're always complaining. But people who are considered to be maybe of a lesser level in the economy, they are one thing in common. They are like Matatu. In Kenya, the Matatu, people say you are a Matatu driver, you have not gone to school, but those people have circles, are organized. So if you go to football today, people in football, as team in the district league, has never received 10 shillings from FUFA, but they identify as a member of FUFA. And every time they are saying, FUFA, let's do this as FUFA. And they even tell Magogo, FUFA is not yours. Me, I like people to tell me that. But most people tell me, you as federation. Tell me this federation, Ron, is not yours. we think it should go this way. Contribute, because the many decisions that need to be made for us to go forward need collective push and collective responsibility. Sometimes your game developer says, oh, we are developers, do this for them. We were in a meeting with the biggest telco in Kenya, Safaricom, a few months ago. Beast was there. I don't know if, I think Bambina was there. It ended up being the same thing. Small proposals to the telco. Oh, I run this small league, I run this. This telco is not a government. They are a business. Activision are not a government, they are a business. If you are going to speak to them, you need to come with consolidated effort and tell them, does this make business sense to us? Otherwise, they have no responsibility for us. It's like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola can decide to close shop in Uganda. They are right. It's their company. They produce it. If they close shop, yes, but Uganda must continue to show them value. But I'll just repeat, and it's something in our generation, we need to take part. And in taking part, there'll be disappointment, there'll be highs, there'll be lows, but we need to be resilient. Take part and be resilient so that we'll get a lot of change. But as it speaks now, especially in Africa where decisions are centralized, policies are centralized, Africa is not yet free market, Europe, USA type. I like his aspirations of companies in esports, but as long as there is no conducive environment, a company needs 3 more other competitors for it to be sustainable. A team needs rivals. A sportsman needs rivals. There is no Ronaldo without Messi. There is no Federer without Nadal. You need this so that you can have a true ecosystem.
Yeah. Maybe I could also comment on that. I could speak for the gamers here, I hope. Personally, I'm a firm believer in federations. Why? Because I know that at the end of the day, federations speak the government's language. Because if I go to government, let's say as a private company, asking for something, they're going to direct you to a government agency or a government federation as a must, because that's how it's structured. So that's a structure in which we have to operate. So I'm a firm believer in federations, and I think now what we need to figure out is how do the federations and gamers find an authentic way of relating? Because I feel like that's what's missing. Yeah, we're failing to interpret what federations are doing. Gamers are failing to interpret that. Gamers are failing to see the value in federations. And the moment we figure that part out, I believe, because federations everywhere, it's part of government. I mean, it's part of an ecosystem at the end of the day. And I think on my end, I'm really a firm believer in federations if done right. And I'm also hopefully speaking for the gamers that the gamers do understand the need for federation, because a gamer can't just walk up to the government and make a request. He will have to go through the federation. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I think from my end, what I've been able to gather from this entire conversation is that we need to organize, okay? And the ecosystem needs to move in unison, like leave nobody behind. Yes, for example, we've always had these models where, it's like a top-down approach. For example, Nigeria, where you like abundance of creativity, but it has a ceiling and you stop there. Then you have countries like, South Africa, which is policy driven, and that shapes everything, and therefore they are able to unlock the potential. Kenya, and I think a lot of us are trying to come in the middle. I think Kenya is saying, okay, we have a top-down approach, bottom-up, but let's also meet in the middle so that as policymakers are in the room, you're building collectively. And I think for me, that is what I'm gathering is the most important way forward for industries such as ours. And as I say, leave nobody behind. So you're asking how? That's why we have platforms like this, more dialogue, so that we have. I'm sad that the guys from ministry have left the chat or left the room, but this is why we wanted to have sessions such as these, and then take this out of this room. Take this out of this room and continue these kinds of aggressive engagements and dialogues, okay? Because the ecosystem, unfortunately, cannot longer move in the fragmented model in which it's working. But again, for me, really thank you to the fantastic panelists. I think from Marvin, what I was able to capture really close to my heart was the soft power that esport has, but also that we need to catch them early, really working with the universities and the schools, because that's a very, going back to mindset change and mobilizing, catch them early. From Brian, I think, again, the beautiful story of, esport can take us back to school. That's a massive, massive opportunity that needs to be explored. But again, as you've challenged everybody, we need to have a very clear pathway to arrive to that. Yared painted the relevance of play and reintroducing edutainment back to the classroom, because we are shaped by what we read, what we see, and what we hear. And if we can get more of that and work really closely with all the stakeholders, we'll be able to unlock some fantastic potential. And lastly, Brian, of course, called for we need to professionalize, but we also really need to start speaking the business of esport. And also he added that a low-hanging fruit, we really need to invest in PR, which is also interesting because also the creative industry has largely understood that the media shapes everything, and you have to allocate very large marketing budgets to escort your film, to escort your music. And yes, that was spot on. We really need to invest in our PR for us to be found, to tell the stories. And with that, I would like to end the last panel for the day. Thank you so much for being patient, and thank you so much for being kind. I hope it was beneficial. We have, I need to find Desiree, because I know it's almost 5 o'clock. I need to figure out what the plan of the day is, but we would still need this conversation sets the tone for what we wanted to do in the break-off sessions. So let just give me 2 minutes to get a sense of how the rest of the evening will work out, but I really feel like we already started some momentum here. Yes.
Could I just mention something real quick, something that I don't recommend to the people in this room?
Go ahead.
There is a growing concept in esports called Esports 2.0. It's a conversation that's being had amongst a few thought leaders in the industry. So these thought leaders have managed to see the previous esports bubble burst. So they're coming up with a bit of information around Esports 2.0. So I'd recommend everyone to read into that. Maybe go home and just type in hashtag Esports 2.0 on LinkedIn, because I think that's where the conversation is being had most. There is a bit of restructuring that's happening. And a lot of it has to do with grassroots. A lot of it has to do with schools, because people realize that this is more sustainable within school structures than outside school structures. So I'd recommend everyone look into Esports 2.0. I think it would be something good for us to pick on and see how to elevate our esports ecosystem in Africa. Yeah, thank you. Over to you.